All right, folks, this is Scott. It's been a very long time since I have updated this playlist, whatever it is, of the adventure of the uh, Constellation attempt in Unreal, and maybe you can kind of maybe guess by my tone of voice of the attempt there when I said that word. That basically, well, first of all, I ended up getting really busy with lots of other things that I had to deal with that, I needed to pay the bills with and stuff like that. So I couldn't really do too much in the way of work on the project, really. At the same time, I've come to the end of the rope pretty much with my Unreal attempts here to do this with MetaSound. It's a lovely tool, and it's really capable of a lot of things, but for my particular purposes, for my particular needs, both Unreal and MetaSounds are not what I need. They're not. They're not useful for me personally. So it might be good to kind of go into that a little bit. Basically, I'm sort of coming from a somewhat unorthodox kind of perspective. What I'm making isn't a game. It's an application, and it uses some unusual paradigms in terms of control and things like that. And I found that I just kept running into walls with regards to Unreal because basically Unreal wants to do things its way. And there's just not a lot of flexibility there, unfortunately, for me and personally, as far as just, the types of approaches that I want to take, the things that I want to do, these more unorthodox kinds of approaches that I'm trying for. So that was one thing. A lot of the times, I did manage to get on a Discord, which I highly recommend. It's very, very cool. The Unreal Slackers Discord, very, very good group of people. Really nice, really helpful. At the same time, though, they're very much kind of they're big into Unreal as the solution for things. And so a lot of the times when I would talk about how what I was doing to do stuff, you know, they would basically just sort of say, "Well, why you wanna do it that way?" Like, as if that was, like, the wrong way to do it, like, and there's only one way to do it inside Unreal, and then you can't do any other way. And I have been reading more and more stuff about how it's just not flexible for certain things. If you wanna make a game, if you wanna make sounds for your game, that's perfectly fine. It's good for that particular kind of purpose and that sort of stuff. But I find that, a large portion of what I'm gonna be dealing with is, interfacey type stuff and not really dealing with the sounds quite so much as I had mentioned many, many times before. So as a result, the thing is that like I just kept running into the way that it wanted to do things as being a bit non-intuitive for the way that I wanted to work. There's and the thing that probably takes it over the top for me is this has to run on a VR headset standalone. Eventually the goal of this is that it's going to be running as a standalone VR application in Android. And right now, MetaSounds by itself and even Unreal uh, with the blueprints is an inefficient way to handle that. It does not execute code in a fast kind of way. It actually ends up being considerably slower than Unity's C sharp. There was actually an experiment that somebody did where they were basically comparing Unity's visual scripting with Unreal's visual scripting with blueprints basically with C sharp and then finally C++. And of course C++ is the fastest and C sharp was the next fastest and then blueprints was after that and then at the very last was the Unreal visual scripting at this point in time. So so the thing is that I need this to run relatively fast. I don't know that much about C++ scripting, so I didn't feel confident about, handling that inside Unreal. And I think that basically um, due to the difficulties that I ran into just in terms of a paradigm shift that I was unprepared for in Unreal, it's not going to be working for me as much. Now I might do other things. Will probably be in Unreal for some kinds of projects with other people and stuff like that, but just not this project, not Constellation. It's just not going to work for me overall. That being said, I'm not giving up on the project at all. Okay, so it's just I'm giving up on putting it on Unreal. So I'm going to basically be sticking it back in Unity. I'm going to go back to Unity and I'm going to make the next version of the project in Unity. So this playlist will continue, except it will, or maybe I'll make a new one and it'll be Constellation in Unity, basically. So that will be how we're going to basically do it, essentially. But for now, this is I'm basically stopping work on this. And as I had said, all the way at the beginning of this whole thing, it's maybe a failed experiment. We may only get some part of the way through and then find out that we hit a dead end and that's it. And that's pretty much what had happened. I mean, basically, I realized that, I could be sitting there and beating my head against the wall and learning blueprints, and it would be a very good thing and things like that. But the problem is and it'll likely not work when I have to put it on an Oculus Quest headset or even a Quest 3 if I buy the Quest 3 in a couple months or whatever like that. Um, so the thing is that, rather than, dealing without the amount of frustration that I've had to deal with in Unreal, and then add on top of that the possibility that it won't work efficiently. I've already heard some things from somebody who has a really excellent app called Mix Universe, I think is what it's called, Mix Universe. And you should look it up if you haven't, because that guy is doing an amazing work with MetaSounds and in an unusual application that you can kind of do some cool things with. So yeah, but anyway, I'm stopping on my part because I'm more familiar with Unity. It's, the devil I know versus the devil I don't, that kind of thing. So basically, that's pretty much about it. So all I can say is join me in the future for more stuff having to deal mainly with Unity and not so much with Unreal. But I'm not going to say that I'm totally hanging up things with Unreal. It just means that whatever I'm going to work on with Unreal will be a game. It will be definitely a game project of some kind or another. It's not going to be an application with unusual interactions and things like that. I definitely just ran into some weird things that it just didn't make any sense to me. Like things like, for example, you can't deactivate an object in Unreal. It just blows my mind. You can't actually stop an object in Unreal. All you can do is make it not draw or destroy it. Those are your two choices. And again, I know enough about programming to understand a certain sort of maniacal kind of OCD control freak programmer mindset about that sort of thing, which is that, if you need something, you instantiate it. And if you don't, then you destroy it. That way it doesn't use up any resources. But it's tricky when you have to bring things in and initialize them. And that's one of the things that I think that Unity does better in the sense of like being able to, deactivate and reactivate objects. If you have a deactivated objects, the scripts don't work. The scripts don't function on them, and that's kind of useful. So you can have a situation where you have some temporary objects with some scripts on them. They don't get used. They don't get referenced. That's fine, but you can't do that on Unreal. There's no way to do that. You can make the object not draw. It'll still use resources. And whatever scripts are on it or whatever, or whatever functionality you place on it, that will continue to run even though the thing's not drawing inside the game space. Now, again, some people who have more experience in Unreal may correct me on this. Child objects, for example, unusual. I'm not saying that they don't happen, but it doesn't get nested. Unreal seems to prefer very flat lists of things that you then organize by means of references to the objects. Naming objects is apparently superfluous and uninteresting and not usable or whatever. And I use the game object names in Unity all the time in order to organize what I'm going to do with them and stuff like that. So there's just a lot of very different kinds of things in terms of like how things work in Unreal that just didn't work with me intuitively as much. The way that somebody put it, I thought was really good was that like in Unity, you can take an unorthodox approach and push and get someplace, but in Unreal, you might very well run into a bunch of walls and not be able to move at all. And that's pretty much kind of what happened with me. I managed to get a certain distance, But, the amount of extra work that I'm gonna have to do in order to be able to make this work, and mind you, what I'm doing is work on just 1 layer. There's gonna be 16 layers, so that's potentially a lot of notes happening, and I have a feeling that what would happen would be it would just bog down and just not be efficient enough anymore. So, join me for the next time. I will be doing this inside Unity. I don't think it'll be happening super soon, but it'll be happening probably. I'll probably kick it off at least this a little bit this month, and we shall see how far I get on that front. And there might be some lessons that I can apply that I have learned a little bit here that might be helpful in the situation in the future. At any rate, I hope this will help you get your game audio on, if that is even possible. But I'll see you in the next ones. Take care. Bye.